So let's talk about Apple for a second. Here on the Ali Ridge channel, we've talked a lot about Apple, both in the sense of MacBooks and iPhones and iPads and you name it, and how we like their products or dislike their products, as well as the opposite side of things like Hackintoshing. And Eric just did 2 great videos this week going over the future of Hackintoshing and some USB issues. However, with all being said, where is the current state of Apple? What are people's concerns, and really what does that mean for the future of Apple overall, as it now is a $1 trillion company? Some say it's a $1 trillion monopoly. Others think the height of Apple's success was now in the past. However, I think I represent a large chunk of Apple customers, and that's why it's important to have this conversation. So to be fair to Apple, we're not going to really talk about any past products or past successes or past failures. We're really just going to talk about the current and the future. So let's start with the thing you're probably watching this video on right now, an iPhone. So just last week, Apple announced their new iPhones. They announced the iPhone XS, the iPhone XS Max, as well as the iPhone XR. If you're looking at the iPhone XS or the XS Max, well look, there's not a huge upgrade to be honest, and that's one thing I am getting more and more disappointed about every single year with Apple events, is it's just not that breathtaking, revolutionary, new experience it was like year after year after year after year. Though it may be a solid upgrade for you if you're on an iPhone 7 or 8 or anything before that. If you're someone like me that already has an iPhone 10, I'm pretty much gonna stick with what I got right now. And don't get me wrong, there are cool features, but that is exactly what they are. Features. They're almost sales gimmicks. It's those things that they advertise about, but you may never use. By no means is it a new breathtaking experience or offer you something you must have on your phone. And I guess that's partly because we live in a time where you already have everything you want on your phone. However, there are people out there that want a tablet-sized phone, and if that's the case, I understand the appeal. However, what is more interesting to me is the XR. I think the XR will be the most successful out of the new iPhone lineup. However, it's got its problems too. Having a downgraded display compared to the iPhone X or XS or XS Max is definitely going to be its biggest weakness. However, overall, it seems like a decent phone at a decent-ish price. But with price in mind, let's talk briefly about that. So it'd be completely fair to say Apple's been a premium brand with a premium price tag for at least the last decade or two. However, I feel like this is getting a little bit insane right now, and this is where it's gonna start off coming out a little bit ranty. How Apple thinks it's okay to have $1,000+ phones is unbelievable. This is not setting good rules for this industry, because Apple is practically one of those companies that makes the rules for this industry. Case in point, Samsung has $1,000+ phones now, like the new Note. However, I guarantee you, if Apple didn't come out with a $1,000 phone with the iPhone X, Samsung probably wouldn't have either, because this is a competitive market where price does matter. But if Apple goes ahead and does something like that, it makes all the competition start making $1,000+ phones. And where does this go eventually? Are we gonna have $2,000 phones or $5,000 phones one day? The answer, probably. And to me, that is just not a good direction to go. We should start making these technologies cheaper, not more expensive. But overall, I think that will be one of Apple's biggest weaknesses in the long run, if they don't cheapen their iPhones a little bit. There's just no way they're gonna sell as good as previous models, especially with strong competition, unlike the past. And along with every new iPhone, we always have a new iOS update. And that is something else I wanna talk about real quick. So year after year after year, there's rumors that we're gonna have amazing iOS updates. They're gonna give us all the features that we want, improve bug issues, make the phone new again, even if you have a past gen phone. And in the past, I felt like that before with iOS updates. Like, wow, it's amazing. I think iOS 6 was a big one, if I remember correctly. However, iOS 12 is my least favorite iOS update ever in the history of iPhones, and I've owned every single iPhone just about. Even in our office, we've argued a little bit about this. Eric's kind of on my side, but we have other people that are like, iOS 12 is great, and I'm here to tell you, it's really not. Sure, are there maybe bug fixes? Probably. There's bug fixes in just regular updates too, not a whole iOS, update. Are there some new apps and some new features? Sure, there are. You know, you can do Siri shortcuts, and yeah, that's usable to 3 people. You can do screen time and track your usage, and that's also usable to the same 3 people. And the fact that I'm failing to remember what new features it has just shows you how memorable these features are. But as I was talking about this yesterday, one of our employees here actually sent me a very passive-aggressive email why iOS 12 is great. And this is what they said. And let me go through each one of these points and dismiss it. 1, Apple worked on making iOS work better instead of redesigning apps and making a bunch of flashy new features. Okay, first of all, at this point, who's complaining that iOS 11 was so buggy and had issues? iOS 11 was completely stable and I had very little issues with. For this update, Apple thought about how we use our devices and made strides to make them more productive. What the hell? What can you do more productive on iOS 12 that you couldn't do in 11? Like that's not a point, and maybe this is more of an argument against our employee that wrote this stuff than Apple, but huh? Screen time, already talked about that. Okay, the big one, group notifications. And I can see this being a nice feature, don't get me wrong. But it's a little feature. This could have been a mild little update, not a whole iOS 12, you know. 12 is a prime number. Those are supposed to be good updates. Me emoji, Animoji, all those emoji things, who cares about? No, let's be honest, we don't care. ARKit 2.0, I also don't really care. However, I'm also skeptical if that's an actual iOS update or something specific to the new iPhones. Not 1000% sure about that. Siri shortcuts we've already talked about. And 32-person FaceTime, yeah, that was a thing. However, it's not even out, and we don't know if it's ever coming out. So if those are the things that an iOS 12 supporter that loves iOS 12 said, then I'm a little confused, because there's nothing good there. And weirdly enough, though they didn't change really the look or design of iOS on an iPhone, they did change it on an iPad, and I'm not going to say for the best. I'm really not a big fan of what the clock and the date and time all looks like on the iPad. It just looks a little rushed or a little like crappy Photoshop or something's not right there. It doesn't seem Apple designed. When I originally had it on the beta, I thought it was just a beta thing. But honestly, not a huge fan. And I'm sorry, I was reminded to talk about the Measure app. Sure, that's cool when it works. However, like 5 out of 10 times I've tried it, it either doesn't work or it's actually inaccurate. So I'll leave that to you. And this is not me hating Apple. I still happily use my iPhone 10. I have MacBooks. I'm very much in Apple's ecosystem. I have an iPad Pro. This is not really the argument here. It's just, what are you doing, Apple? With prices as high as they are, and then kind of a lesser device in a way, and a lesser OS in a way than what you're normally expected to deliver, I just have my doubts right now about the future. And I don't know what that means. I'm not saying that Apple's going out of business anytime soon, because they're not. I'm not saying Apple's not going to continue to try to innovate, because they are. But it's definitely the end of an era. There's only so much power and resources and features and anything you can put in a mobile device like a phone. So I don't blame Apple for that. It's kind of an industry standard issue at this point. But let's be transparent about that. I would love if Apple came out and was like, you know what? Our phones are good, let's take a year off. But no, they're just gonna sell you something that is mildly better and a lot more expensive. And that I don't like. And one more comment I'll say about this is we did a live show on the channel going over Apple's event. I commentated over the entire Apple live stream, and just like a lot of other companies do, like the Wall Street Journal and New York Times and a lot of other YouTubers, and it's a very common thing. And though I don't completely blame Apple for this, but immediately after that live stream we saw we couldn't monetize it because Apple claimed it. And only about a day or two later, that video was blocked worldwide, even though that video was doing very successful for us in that short amount of time. And it just was blocked worldwide. No copyright strikes, no nothing on YouTube. However, it's blocked worldwide, and that limited our live streaming abilities on the YouTube channel for 3 months. Though we are fighting that because it is considered fair use. And I'm not gonna blame necessarily Apple for that, as those are YouTube problems altogether that I actually do plan on getting into in another video soon. However, Apple is a company to be worried about. When they're taking down people's videos that honestly we're helping promote them because they want so much control over how they're viewed and how they're talked about, and especially against little guys like us. That is a very scary time. And though I won't put all the blame on Apple for that, that is still something to not dismiss. So that is it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was definitely a little different, I will say. I went a little ranty, but I do just want to get the message out there to remind people to know of all the implications that Apple has on our world and how it affects even the market, and that we gotta hold them accountable for the good and the bad. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys next time.